What was the defining moment in each of you approached this in your youth where you actually understood that your sexual purity was something that was worth protecting? Okay, welcome to conversation number 3 of Moms of Men, and these are my men. I haven't introduced them since the first section, so I'm gonna do it again. I've got Arden, Addison, Austin, and Mr. Alec right here next to me. We're gonna be talking about an issue that we got more questions about than anything else. We're gonna talk about sexual purity. And since I'm not a man, I'm going to rely pretty heavily on you guys when we talk about this. Awesome. And this is an issue that a lot of moms that don't have either healthy male influences, like maybe the dad's addicted to pornography, maybe they're divorced, or they're the single mom raising a son without any male in his life, in her son's life. These are issues that are hugely important. So what I'm gonna ask you to kind of as the conversation starter was, what was the defining moment in each of you approached this in your youth where you actually understood that your sexual purity was something that was worth protecting?
Yeah. I'll go first. I know for me, the really defining moment was when I started realizing what it was doing to my marriage. And I wasn't married, and I'm still not married.
How old are you, Arden?
I'm 22.
And how old were you when that happened?
I was probably like 16 when I started realizing that. Because what I started realizing was, I had this thing, since I was a little kid, I've always just dreamed about my wife. And I was like, this is what she'll look like, this is what she'll act like, and this is how our marriage would be. But then I started realizing what pornography and those things actually do to marriage and how it compromises every facet of marriage and every facet of love and everything like that. And I was like, I am ruining what I have dreamed about already, and I'm not even married yet. And so when I had that realization, and I was like, not only is it something that we need to stay away from or something that's gonna mess with you, I was like, no, it's ruining my marriage. Like, that revelation for me personally was something that really hit home and really was a turning point for me.
And how did you come to that revelation as a 16-year-old boy?
I think it was just something, and it was just a very quick pickup from something that Dad was talking about. When Dad was sharing kind of his experiences one time, I think it was with our family, and just hearing him say, this is what was going on, and this was something that was carried into my marriage. And I was like, wait, this gets carried into your marriage?
You're like, wait, I thought marriage was gonna fix that.
Exactly. I was like, no. Yeah, but it doesn't. And so I was so happy that I had that revelation, because I think some people, they have different revelations, and I think each one of us have a different revelation, but for me, that was it.
Yeah.
And I love it was a revelation instead of a fear about sin.
Right. Yeah. Actually, speaking of revelation, I actually had one as well. So same thing, picking up on things that you and Dad were saying, kind of how, like, whenever you give yourself to somebody, you're literally giving a part of yourself to somebody. And then whenever you get to your wife, how much of yourself do you want to give to her? So I started to, like, imagine almost like a balloon that you blow up with air. And, like, if you were to blow it up with tons of air, and then if you were to hold it tight, in that instead of tying off purity, you have control of it, and you kind of hold it tight, right? And that whenever you may be doing things throughout your life before you're married, you can imagine that you can open it up a little bit and let out some air. You can open up a little bit more and let out some more. You can open up a little more and let out some more air. But then whenever you get to your wife, how big is this balloon going to be? Because, and so I kind of... Analogy. I know, I wanted, it's kind of like the way that I saw it, that I wanted to, whenever I came to my wife, I had this balloon that was still just completely full of all the air, and I wanted to completely give my heart, to her, so yeah.
I love that. I love that you're thinking vision. I mean, it said that Jesus, for the hope set before him, and so for this hope of intimate sexual relationship with your wife and a marriage where you can fully give yourself, I love that both of you had that in front of you.
And really, that was the same for me. Like, you can run from something for only so long. Eventually, you need to run to something.
Right.
And I had a vision, this idea that God impressed on my heart of what it could look like to have a beautiful sexual experience with my wife. And that was a driving force for me.
Yeah. How about you, Mr. Austin?
I'd say it's a combination of a few things. I would say one of the first things was a real revelation of God's love for me. And then that revelation spilled into a revelation of God's love for other people. And so just realizing, like, especially with pornography and stuff like that, that you just don't treat people that way. And like valuing them as a human being. And so that was a big part of it. Another part was, I know this is kind of like the fear side of things, but the discipline side of things of the Bible talks about this in multiple places that'll ruin your life, like a prostitute can ruin your life. And so just realizing this isn't good and this isn't going to benefit my life at all. And I think even going back to the whole why thing that we've been discussing, like even going to your sons and explaining like look up the effects of pornography and masturbation and stuff like that, and be like, this is what like the long-term effects of these things can have on you. And so I think for me, it's like a balance. If you scare me into doing something, I'll actually do it because
everybody's wired different. We talked about that even with the discipline.
Yeah. And so I think even just walking with God, as you're studying the Word, stuff like that, it changes your desires and stuff like that. And so,
well, I love because I think that you're actually extremely logical. I don't know that it's so much a fear thing with you. I think you're kind of like, hey, if that's bad for me, I don't want to do it.
Right.
That's
There's
just
better.
stupid.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. But there's a lot of stuff out nowadays that is telling people, oh, no, pornography is fine. Masturbation is fine. And I mean, how are you fighting hearing those kind of things? It sounds like you're fighting it with a vision, but like, do you encounter your friends that are actually, maybe they're talking to you and they're not actually having an abundant life or even a hope because of what's gone on? I mean, have you guys had conversations with your friends around this?
I think even just being like, when you do stuff like that, it rips your soul apart. Yeah. And so I almost want to address the boys on this and not just the moms, but like, it's ripping your life apart. You feel it. And so, you don't want to celebrate that because it'll continue to bring you down that road of self-destruction, basically. Yeah. And so I'm completely in opposition to those kind of studies and stuff like that. I think it's completely wrong. And I think it's a sin against ourselves. And I think what Alex said was awesome. It does take a chunk away from you. And I believe that can be redeemed. And I think we all believe that. But and then also too, just something that I realize is when I'm dating a girl or wanting to get to know a girl, I don't want that baggage hanging over my head, and I don't want to view her like that. I want to like have a friendship with a girl that'll eventually turn into something else, and I don't want to be like, oh yeah, I'm dating this girl, and then I'm also doing this on the side because I can't like have sex with her or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just And so I don't know. There's just a confidence too that comes in your life when you can allow people to see every aspect of your life.
Our culture is so anti-shame and so anti-guilt, and I'm not saying that shame and guilt and condemnation are good things, but there are certain things that naturally you say, I'm not proud of this. Sure. And so our culture is trying to flip it and say, oh, no, it's fine. But deep inside, most people know that intimacy is to be shared with another person. Yeah. It's not just to be self-sex. So what are some of the things that you practically did to guard your sexuality? What are some of the practical things? That sounds like there's a vision, but what are some of the practical steps you guys took? I know we talked real openly with you guys.
I'll share something. I would go to the bathroom. This is going to sound weird. I'd go to the bathroom with the door open.
Yeah.
I know.
I'd always go to his room. We'd just be sitting there. Like,
so I would go.
You still go to the bathroom with the door open.
He still does. He comes and visits. He's like, hey guys, I'm here.
Leaves the door wide open.
True talk. Go to the bathroom with my door open, and then at night when I go to bed, I would open my door, which one time got me into trouble when someone broke into my room in the middle of the night and robbed our house, but that's a whole other story. But I would sleep with the door cracked or the door open.
So you would just kind of set up an accountability.
Well, yeah, and for me, honestly, if all you have is accountability, it's not going to take you far enough. It'll help keep you on the straight and narrow to a degree, but at the end of the day, you have to have a vision. Yeah. You have to have the heart behind the what. Right. Otherwise, the moment's going to come, it's going to be too intense, and you're going to give in.
Yeah, and just to speak to that as well, what you were saying at the very end there is, and also what you were saying about our culture is it's against not feeling shameful or things like that.
It's calling shameful things normal.
Exactly. I would love to flip it, and say, but what are you standing for? And something that I really felt like. That really made things easy for me was standing for something. Like, I chose not to kiss a girl all throughout high school. and my brothers would even give me crap on that. And but that was something that I stood for. And like we'd be like watching like a TV show, and like maybe like the couple like finally kissed, and then they'd be like, "Hey, look, they went farther than you've gone with the girl." And they're like, "Hey, all right." So like,
I never said that.
Austin must have.
Austin.
all right, so anyways, to bring it back, no, whenever you stand for something,
Yeah,
like going
sure,
back
it's
to
a stronger position.
Yeah, going back to what Addison was saying earlier, and Arden and Austin, how they were saying, I want to give this to my wife. This is what I want for my wife. When you're standing for something, it makes it easier. It makes things a lot easier. That's what you want. Yeah. So,
And I'm 30. I've been married for almost 9 years. So
Congratulations.
Hey, for the record, very proud of that. So I haven't had to navigate
Right.
my 20s.
Right.
I got married at 22, so I didn't have to navigate my 20s and this whole idea of being a fully mature man and navigating my 20s without a wife by my side. And I've seen you three, you're only 22, but you two in particular, I've seen the way you guys have navigated this season. And there is hope. And I think some people just need to hear that.
Yeah.
Like, there is hope. You don't have to settle for what society says is the normal. And frankly, people lower their standards when they lose hope. Yeah. They do.
Yeah.
When we have hope, we raise our standards.
And I'll say this, like all four of us boys, this is something we struggled with. And so the struggle is real. And I've like mentored a lot of young kids or younger guys, and every single person, this has been a struggle. And so I would just like encourage the moms that your sons aren't like weird, they're not messed up if they're doing
And
this.
talk about it.
Yeah, and that's something.
We opened the
Don't
door
let it-
for you guys
don't
to
let
talk
it-
about
don't
it.
We
let it
did,
be
we did open the
taboo.
door, but I'd even be proactive
Yes.
as moms,
Yes.
or maybe if there's a dad, tell the dad to be proactive about it. But ask pointed questions. I
Yeah.
mean, it's gonna be awkward for that like 30 seconds.
Check your computers.
But yeah, do all that kind of stuff.
Computers should
Phones.
not be off. They
put
need to
your-
be inside.
yeah, put
Right.
No, but
right.
honestly, you want to take that 30 seconds of awkwardness over your son continually
Yes.
feeling like he's hiding something from you guys.
And opening the door for them, because I think that's sometimes for the son, that's the hardest thing, is actually having that. Because I think there's a lot of sons out there that are like, man, I'm fighting this, and this is something that I'm struggling with, and I can't beat it, and I want to tell someone. But like, if you guys came as the parents and just opened the door for them, like,
Well, I think your dad did, because he would talk about it publicly.
But no,
that's what I'm
he
saying.
did.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
He
that's
did.
what parents need to do.
But I was 13. I was 13, coming home from school on a bus.
Yeah.
And that's when I learned about what masturbation was. This kid was sitting next to me, and he was asking me if I was going to go home and masturbate that night. And I had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. And I was just like, what are you talking about? And he said, oh, you don't do this? Like, basically, there's something wrong with you. You need to do
Right,
this.
right.
And I went home that night, and I was too nervous to talk to Dad about it. And that was the first time at 13 years old. And that's something that I struggled with during my teenage years. And then God set me free toward the end of my teenage years. But that was something that I struggled with.
Right.
And if I would have had that conversation
Yeah.
with Dad or with
So
a
would that
parent
have been
prior to that,
But I think it's uncomfortable for you to probably talk to a woman about it.
yeah,
So
that would
there's
have
a
been
lot
hard
of
to talk to.
there's a
woman.
lot of moms
But I didn't even know
out
what
there.
it was.
And I'd also
How
almost
could we
say it
not?
is a little uncomfortable with women, but if there's no man there, I mean, it's better
better
than
to have the
nothing.
Yes,
conversation.
it's better than
And
nothing.
or if the mom can find a man who
Right,
she
that she feels
trusts
healthy, yeah.
that would talk to their son about it. And I'll say this, like, I know it's not good to shame people, but if you murder someone, that act is shameful. If you have sexual immorality, that act is shameful. And so there is that bit of realizing, hey, this is wrong. And I don't want my life to include it, if that makes sense. So
you can
Well, it can
separate
become-
those
it
two,
becomes a-
differentiate between the
Yeah.
person and the behavior.
because a shameful act, it doesn't mean I should live in shame.
And that's the problem with
Right.
our world today is like, look, if you tell me that an act is shameful, you're telling me that I'm shameful.
Yeah, people have
And so
not
they
been
reject
able to-
any kind of
Right.
discipline.
But it
Right.
should be shamed. It should be
Certain
shamed. Like
behaviors.
pornography should be shamed.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Pornography is a stripping not only
It
of
steals your
females but of
vitality.
men. You know, it strips the dignity of women and of men. I mean, you hear so many men, they get captured into this, and it destroys their lives. And so I mean, there's actually just as many male victims, if not more, than female victims of pornography, and it's gotten really bad. So,
But and just to say one more thing, and we've kind of said this, but make it as open as you possibly can with your kids to discuss it. I remember I thought this was very interesting. I was talking to a mom once, and she was just like, I told my kids if they ever were out partying and got drunk or something like that, call me. Don't try to drive home, stuff like that. And I thought that was interesting, but at the same time, I was like, that's so good, because ultimately that tells their kids,
Your
I don't want
safety
you to
is
get
more
hurt. Your
important.
safety is more
Right.
important than punishment. And so just like the more of an open door you can have with this, the better in my mind.
And equipping them, because I think a lot of times a lot of times parents might not want to equip, and they won't want to talk about it and things like that, and because they want to be like, I can control what they see, I can control
You
the
can't.
things that they,
Not
which
anymore.
is,
You
it's
can-
just
you
so
can-
true.
you can
It's-
limit it, but you can't
just
control
like
it
Addison
anymore.
being
Yeah.
on a school bus, it's like you can't always be there, but what you can do is you can equip them, you can get them to understand, and you can, which I think that's something you guys did honestly really well. And I don't know if you guys did it intentionally, but you guys did do very well, so that when things came up for me, I was like, okay, I know this is wrong. Like, I know this isn't just a normal thing.
I know
Yes,
Alec came right to us, and
Yeah.
Yeah, no, actually, speaking to that, I'm sorry, I have to speak to this as well, because equipping us and being able to handle those weird conversations on the buses, that's something that you guys, I feel like, did great to me intentionally. Yeah. So my conversation with my dad was just one conversation about the sex talk. And I definitely needed some more clarification.
More context.
Yeah, I did. Thankfully, I have my brothers. All right, but anyways, something that you guys did that was really great though, and I know that you talked about this in one of your sessions of Moms and Men about the Adventures in Odyssey with Addison.
Yeah.
So you did
And
something.
Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so
No, but he listened to things at night to keep his
Exactly.
mind on stuff.
Well, no,
Yeah.
but actually a whole nother route that I want to take with that. So you gave something to me called Passport to Purity.
Yeah.
So Passport to Purity, I listened to that on my own. It was easy for me to go to, easy to digest, because this is something that you listen to. But what that did for me was it showed me other people besides you, and it made it feel like that's the norm.
Right.
So then whenever I got to these people who might not have known what they were talking about because they're younger, and Passport to Purity, they position in a great way of like, hey, you know what, over these next few years, you're gonna be looking at your parents like maybe like they're idiots and like they don't understand a lot of stuff, and then you're gonna be like, wait a minute, my parents know so much. And then you'll want to go to your parents, and they're like, you're gonna go to like this weird stage. But what happened was because of Passport to Purity, because of these great hard topics that they brought up, but they brought it up in a great way of, oh no, this is the right way, and this is the way that you should be thinking. It made it so much easier that I thought that was the norm whenever I got to those hard conversations.
Yeah, and we were kind of preemptive with that, and so that was good. I know we did that with you and Arden.
No, Alec wouldn't let me listen to it. I remember.
I wasn't allowed to.
I'd be like, dude, what are you listening to?
Dad told me not
I can't
to.
listen to
Oh,
this.
man. Okay, we did it. It's not prepared. We're going to get them for you tonight.
got to listen
Yeah,
to
so, I will say that's a great resource. I'm sure there's tons of them out there right now. But Passport to Purity, John and I found like it had the same kind of ideology that we wanted to reinforce in our home. And so that was an important one for us. Well, I hope this has been enlightening for you. This is a conversation. This is a conversation. This isn't a one-time sit down and have a talk about it, the sex talk. This is a conversation. We want you to feel empowered to have conversation with your young men, with your boys, and probably earlier rather than later. I wish we would have talked to Addison earlier. Thank God he's 30 and he's married now. But I'm glad that you're hearing from his vantage that he was 13.
I was set free
He
before I was
13.
married.
No, but he was
Marriage will not
Yeah.
cure your
No, it
kids.
won't.
Do not believe that.
But 13 on a bus. Who would have thought
Yeah.
that conversation
Sure.
would have happened on a bus? So these conversations are happening, and sadly, they're probably happening way earlier than 13 now. So 10 and 11-year-old boys need to have some conversations. You need to preempt it. You need to have healthy conversations. You need to tell them they're the steward of their sexuality, that it's one of the most powerful things that they ever have. So moms, have a conversation. Talk to your husband. If you don't have your husband on board with you, still talk to your son about it. Don't make it weird. Just have this conversation. So I hope this was insightful, and I hope that you can show this to your boys and let your boys hear my now men talk about this.